You finally decide. You feel clear, certain, almost excited. Maybe it's a plan, a habit, or a change you've been avoiding for a long time. For a moment, it feels like this time is different. And then, nothing. The motivation disappears, the energy drops, the urge to act fades faster than it came. What makes it worse is this: you didn't even start yet. If you've ever felt that sharp drop right after making a decision, this isn't about discipline, it's not laziness, and it's not a character flaw. It's a predictable psychological response your brain goes through, and almost no one explains it properly. Because the moment you decide, your brain quietly shifts into a completely different mode. When you're undecided, your mind is in simulation mode. It imagines possibilities, outcomes, future versions of you that feel better than now. This imagining releases dopamine, the same chemical involved in motivation in anticipation. So while you think you're motivated by the decision itself, what you're actually feeling is the reward of imagining change, not doing it. The decision feels good because your brain already collected part of the reward. Then comes the crash. The moment you decide, your brain switches from imagining to execution, and execution is expensive. Now the brain has to deal with effort, uncertainty, discomfort, and the possibility of failure. Dopamine drops. Cortisol, the stress hormone, rises slightly, not enough to panic you, just enough to drain your energy. That drop feels like I lost motivation, but psychologically, it's your brain recalculating the cost. This is where most people misunderstand themselves. They think motivation should increase after a decision, but biologically, motivation often peaks before action, not after. That's why planning feels easier than doing, why talking about change feels better than starting it, why making lists gives relief, but not results. Another layer most people miss is identity friction. The moment you decide, your brain asks a quiet question: is this consistent with who I believe I am? If the decision requires becoming someone different, more disciplined, more visible, more uncomfortable, your brain creates resistance to protect your current identity. Not because the decision is bad, but because the brain values identity stability more than improvement. This is why motivation drops hardest after decisions that would actually change your life. Small decisions don't trigger it, big ones do. There's also the illusion of completion. Psychology shows that when you clearly decide something, your brain partially marks it as done. Not logically, emotionally. You feel like progress happened even though no action occurred. That emotional closure steals urgency. It's the same reason telling people your goals can reduce follow-through. The brain mistakes declaration for execution. So now you're stuck in a strange place. You want the outcome, you decided already, but your body feels heavy, resistant, uninterested. This is where self-judgment usually enters. You start telling yourself stories. I'm inconsistent. I never follow through. I always lose motivation. Those stories feel accurate, but they're incomplete. What's actually happening is that your brain doesn't run on decisions. It runs on momentum, in safety. Decisions create pressure. Pressure triggers protection. Another factor is emotional contrast. Before the decision, there's tension. After the decision, there's expectation. Expectation is heavier than tension. Now there's something to live up to, something to fail at, something to maintain. So the nervous system pulls back, not to sabotage you, but to reduce perceived threat. This is why motivation often returns after you start moving, not before. Action creates feedback. Feedback restores dopamine. Movement reduces uncertainty. But your brain doesn't explain this. It just gives you resistance and waits to see what you do. Here's the crucial shift most people never make. They try to re-motivate themselves, but motivation isn't missing. It's waiting for a different signal. Instead of asking, how do I feel motivated again? The better question is, what's the smallest action that reduces uncertainty? Because the brain doesn't need inspiration, it needs proof that action is survivable. Even tiny movement, opening a document, putting on shoes, writing one line, sends a signal of safety. And once safety returns, motivation follows. This is why people who just start aren't more disciplined. They've learned, often unconsciously, that motivation is a consequence of action, not a prerequisite. One more uncomfortable truth. Sometimes motivation drops because the decision wasn't fully yours. Maybe it came from pressure, comparison, or an ideal version of yourself you don't actually want to become. Your brain knows this before you consciously admit it, so it withdraws energy, not to stop you, but to ask you to slow down and reassess. This is why forcing motivation often backfires. You're pushing against a signal, not a flaw. When you understand this, everything changes. You stop panicking when motivation disappears. You stop making it mean something about you. You stop restarting from zero every time. Instead, you expect the drop. You recognize it as the cost of clarity, and you design around it. Small actions, low friction, no identity pressure, no dramatic promises, just movement. Because losing motivation after a decision isn't failure. It's the moment where imagination ends and reality begins. And the people who move forward aren't the ones who stay motivated. They're the ones who don't take the drop personally and act anyway. That's the difference.